Hi, I'm Richard Costello, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Castler Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Liz Goodbrand, certified ADHD and neuro-inclusion coach, trainer and consultant, and founder of the Goodspace. Liz, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So in this episode, we're going to cover Liz's career so far and her recent pivot from corporate leader to neuro-inclusion founder, and also a really interesting topic around how marketing and neurodivergence intersect. But firstly, I thought it would be great to give listeners a bit more context about who you are in your career and work to date, Liz.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, up until February, had quite a traditional marketing career. So working across a mix of sectors, started in retail, moved into financial services, and then into health insurance and well-being. Moved up the traditional corporate ladder, so progressed my career that way. Really enjoyed working in marketing and in leadership towards the kind of latter stages of my marketing career. But what I found most actually was I was energized most by the people side of things, especially towards the last couple of years of my marketing career. So coaching, mentoring, and supporting people to grow.
Great. And so I guess kind of we're diving back into that question a bit around your career journey so far. But I guess it'd be really interesting to talk about the journey sort of up to your big career pivot that you've
Yeah.
made in the sort of past year or so. And I guess also just that moment and how that came about. Because I think it's when we caught up the other week, it was really interesting to hear about sort of I can imagine it's going to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, so it wasn't at all because I wasn't enjoying working in marketing. I love marketing, and I work in marketing now, but applied in a very different way. So marketing my own business. But a few years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and around the same time suffered pretty severe burnout to the extent where I was signed off work for a couple of months. It was a combination of lots of things that were going on for me, processing a diagnosis. And if anyone listening has been late diagnosed or late identified, it comes with a lot of baggage. So you are processing a diagnosis, you are reflecting on what might have been or what could have been. You're almost kind of unlearning some of the unhealthy coping strategies that you've applied throughout your life, trying to work out who you now are and how to move forward with that diagnosis. So a combination of processing that, I think years of masking in corporate, and for people that aren't aware what masking is, in the neurodivergent community, often we mask because we are afraid to be our full selves. So we're afraid of either not being seen as being capable, or it might be that we're afraid of being too much or too little. So we soften our edges a little bit. And some people mask by mimicking and copying other people and using their social cues as a way of behaving at work. But for me personally, I masked by just dialing my personality down and aspects of my work down. Also, not asking for help if I needed help because I didn't want to be seen as not being capable. So the years of masking, processing my diagnosis, people pleasing that went alongside that as well, meant that I just wasn't in tune with my needs and my preferences, really. And then when I returned to work after having my diagnosis, I was asked what support I needed, but honestly, I couldn't answer because I didn't know what my needs were, let alone how to advocate for them or ask for them in the work setting. So I found that whole transition really quite tough. And to be honest with you, when I was reflecting on, almost in my mid 40s, so reflecting on my career, what do I want for the next 20 years? And as much as I love marketing, like I said, my passion is people. My passion is supporting people. And when I was reevaluating what I wanted to do for the next 20 years, it was with my experience in mind and wanting to support people that were going through a very similar journey to the journey that I went on a couple of years ago. So I've retrained as an ADHD coach, and I love it. So being my owning my own business and running my own business absolutely comes with lots of challenges. So as well as the marketing side, I'm now having to sell myself and sell my services, which is acquiring lots of different skills, and it's exciting. Meeting lots of different people all the time, developing my products, developing my services, but then also having direct contact with all my customers because I'm the one that's doing the service and the delivery too. So it's been an eye-opener, have learnt and grown so much from the experience, but I really love it. So what I do now, it kind of combines my passion for people, my experience of leadership. I'm using my marketing knowledge as well, and I guess my lived experience as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people talk about a lot with starting businesses is that it's great if you've got that kind of direct experience of a problem. So I think often people say with tech startups that it's like, people will like build a solution for a problem that they're facing themselves. And then it will turn out that actually loads of people had that problem. And it's often that it's those kinds of ideas and solutions that can be the best ones, and find the best markets, because of the fact that if you sort of think in an abstract way about, I want to start a business, what should the business be?
Yeah.
It's much harder to come up with a really great idea than sort of I was struggling, with perhaps being in the corporate world is not something that necessarily allows people to be fully themselves.
Yes.
And gives people perhaps the flexibility and sort of, I guess, kindness that they need, particularly if they're neurodivergent as well. So that was a reflection when you were talking about it, and the Goodspace you mentioned as well. And when we talked about this the other week about just preparing for this episode, you mentioned how you've brought your marketing
Yes.
experience into coming up with and we talked about the 4Ps and things like that. The Goodspace, how did that name come about for you? That was an intriguing question that I had when I saw it. Yeah.
To be honest, I found it really hard. And I think even harder with it being my own business, because there's a degree of objectivity that you don't have because you're fully invested in it, right? Both emotionally, kind of all my energy. So I had a workshop with an agency that are based in Sheffield, and they helped me to unpick my values. So what do I want to be known for? What kind of energy and values do I want to bring to my business? Some of them reflect my personal values, and some of them just reflect how I want to support people as well, and kind of deliver the services. So we spent a bit of time exploring my values, my business values, exploring the vision and the purpose, the intent behind the Goodspace. So what is my ambition? What am I hoping to deliver? Who am I hoping to support and serve? And then based on that, there were some clear themes that came out, and we brainstormed, and honestly, we had about 70 different names to start off with. So we had 70 names all on Post-its on a wall. And then between, there were 5 of us in the room. We had 5 ticks, and we could go and select which ones of the 70 were our favourite. So that helped to narrow it down a little bit more. And then I had about 3 or 4. I just asked loads of friends and family. So these are the last kind of 3 and 4 I've got. What ones to you? Well, I was just asking them which ones did they think reflected what I was trying to achieve and what I was trying to deliver. And what I really love about it is it's a play on my maiden name. So my maiden name is Goodbrand. So the good is the play on my surname, and then space, because when we're talking about coaching, it's creating a safe space for someone to share. And not everyone is able to create a safe space for people. And I do think, whilst it's really hard sometimes talking about your strengths, I do think that that's one of my strengths. So I'm very good at building safety, building connection, and building rapport with people. So we leaned into some of my strengths with that too.
Yeah, that's great. And I didn't actually make the connection to the surname, but
Oh,
that's
it's
an
your
obvious.
surname. Yeah.
It's an obvious one, I guess, but it just didn't really. I've always been a fan of your surname, though. It's a
I
great
know.
surname for a marketer. Often talk about like nominative determinism with a couple of friends. It's a kind of recurring like sort of thing that we notice. Find somebody on LinkedIn who works in a particular field and their name is the same as that field. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's and how have you found it in terms of marketing your own company versus marketing another company? Because that's something that, from my personal experience, has just been so different, and I found it really a much harder thing actually. When I was working as an employee for a company, I was way more comfortable. I might have mentioned it when we spoke the other week, but I feel as though for me, you put a lot more. You maybe are much more prone to overthink it. Certainly,
Yes.
from my point of view, and also there's a much greater fear of rejection because your business it's kind of very associated with you, and I don't know. Yeah. So, how have you found that so far?
Yeah, absolutely. What you've just described. And also with having ADHD, those are some of the obstacles and challenges that I carry quite a bit. So the tendency to ruminate quite a bit. The fear of rejection absolutely is a thing. But I'm learning to embrace that messy part of who I am. And the fear of rejection is because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, and I genuinely believe I'm putting good in the world. I hope I'm putting good in the world, and I think for some people they might resonate with that, and it's brilliant, and for other people it's just not their bag, and I'm getting better at recognizing that if it's not their bag, then it's not about me personally. It's just they've got other priorities, other things that they want to do, and that's fine. Um, so back to your question about marketing my business. I naively thought, oh, I've got marketing sorted, 20 years experience of marketing. Marketing my business will be a breeze. And I have not found that experience to be the case, actually. Um, you're so personally invested in it, you do overthink a lot. To start off with, absolutely that fear of rejection, being liked, is it going to resonate with anybody? I also think I've gone from being in a team of people and having the opportunity to bounce ideas off and having that community to being the only person working in my business. So very quickly had to build my community, and that's been from people that I've got brilliant trusted relationships with, who I've worked with in the past. If I can do a shout out to Stephen Birch, who I know you have a relationship with too. He has been
Great guy.
my biggest ally, a great person, introducing me to lots of different people, and also proofreading some of my work for me as well, because when you're doing it all yourself, you're creating, you're proofing, you're pricing, you're developing, and sometimes, we all have blind spots, so it's very easy to miss things on occasion. So having a community of people that you can bounce off of, that you can share with, that you can collaborate with is still so important. So that's something that I've carried with me too. And I think when it comes to ruminating, going back to the data. So wherever possible, using data and evidence that as marketers we use all the time, going back to who your target audience is and any data and evidence that you've got around that to help shape your proposition. So that's been really helpful. Also, I think what's brilliant about owning your own business is you have that flexibility to have an idea and just put it out there the next day. And I love that. That absolutely taps into my strengths as an ADHD, experimenting, being curious, maybe a bit risk taking at times. But I do believe that by doing that, you can kind of get a gauge on what's working, what's not working, where you're getting traction, and you can pull things quite quickly. You can evolve things as well. I'm definitely learning that things aren't fixed, that you do have to be open, you have to be curious and willing to evolve your proposition based on the feedback that you're getting. And I think you can be really responsive when it's just you and you don't have any stakeholders to manage.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite elements of being in a small business is that you
Mm,
can just do things like we sent out 100 Kassler branded teaspoons in the post to people as like a kind of direct mail, like sort of marketing initiative, which was and with like a tea bag, like a Yorkshire tea bag. It was
yeah.
like playing on a kind of Sheffield connection, and it's just like things like that where I guess, I mean, to be fair, as an employee, I've done that before, like with like where you've had a team and bosses that are kind of open to doing fun things, but that was like just the type of thing where you don't need to worry about somebody saying. I mean, to be fair, maybe it's a bit of a risk. You don't need to worry about somebody saying no. And we obviously do discuss things as a team,
Yeah.
and that wasn't kind of, it was sort of an amalgamation of lots of different people's ideas, but yeah, I definitely, I love being able to do doing things like this as well. Being
Yes.
like having these kinds of conversations, and yeah, it's a great part of kind of I think probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, reason why I wanted to start my own business was to have that freedom of expression. So just to be able to kind of,
Mm,
I guess, to have that no barrier on the kind of how you go about things. Not
yes.
just from a marketing point of view. In fact, probably from a marketing point of view, probably a more sort of stick to more conventional sort of things, I think. But it's more
Mm,
about also like how the business is from a operational standpoint and how it is from a what the kind of ways of working are for people.
yeah.
So that's been cool. And just to, I guess, to round off on this section, and you touched on this briefly, but I'm just looking at my notes on the four Ps, and you mentioned around how your when we caught up the other week, you mentioned about how your ICP has evolved.
Yes.
I just thought it'd be quite interesting to sort of look at the Goodspace and your journey so far through the lens of the four Ps, and sort of hear how that helped you kind of think through how your business works.
Yeah, gosh. So it started off for me with my experience in mind, my lived experience, thinking my ideal customer would probably be somebody that shared a similar experience to me. So that was my first point of call in terms of initial ideas for my ideal customer. And then I then naturally went to product and service. So, what kind of offer would be most valuable for that group of people? And one to one coaching, ADHD coaching, it helped me immensely. And so, that was a service that I wanted to provide. So that's where it started, and then through having conversations with people, my service offer broadened and my ideal customer kind of profile broadened as well as a result of having greater conversations, finding out what challenges, barriers and opportunities existed. So for example, one-to-one coaching is brilliant, but it comes at a premium because you've got one-to-one time with people and it's not accessible to everybody. So some organizations will fund it, some won't. It can, for anyone listening that's interested in ADHD coaching, it's sometimes for some organizations they'll consider it as a reasonable adjustment. So sometimes there are affordability barriers with that, and what I don't want is to not be serving the people that really need it. So I want to make sure that my services are accessible. So that led me to explore a group coaching program. So by doing it on a group basis, I'm able to lower the investment required on an individual basis. So I'm removing that barrier to start off with. And there's also something about learning from your community and learning from your peers. And that's something that's inherent within marketing. We love to learn from what other people are doing and sharing ideas. And actually, that's a core part or a core thing within the neurodivergent community too. Often we felt very isolated. So being able to be with a group of peers where you can fully show up as yourself, share your challenges, share opportunities, share what's working, it can feel lighter. You can feel really incredible and great about yourself. So there's something brilliant about group work. So it led me to explore a group proposition. And again, coming back to the fact that you're spinning lots of plates and you're doing lots of different things when you're a small business, I just reached out to my target audience. So something I probably wouldn't have done directly when I was working in corporate, like, oh gosh, like speaking to prospects directly about what they'd like. But that's the flexibility that you've got. I don't have to worry about stepping on anyone's toes or any kind of red tape. So I started by running some LinkedIn polls. And those LinkedIn polls helped me to refine what that proposition could look like. And then those that completed the polls, I went out to them on LinkedIn through just direct message to say, thank you so much for taking part in the poll. I'm creating a group program. I'd love to hear more from you in terms of what you would like to see in a program like that. So I asked them all to complete a survey. And as a result of that, I've got a group program launching in January that has been completely co-created by my ICP. So I know that it's covering the topics that they want for it to cover. I know that the price point is where it needs to be. Of course, when you're filling in a questionnaire, that doesn't always translate, does it, into sales? Because while someone might say, yeah, good price point, there could be things that come up for them that mean that they can't invest in that particular service at that time. But I have really loved just being curious and having that direct contact and experimenting and developing something with people in mind that way, as opposed to just doing it based on secondary research or commissioning a big agency to research your target audience, just getting stuck in. There's something really exciting and exhilarating about that, and just being closer to your customer. Sorry, I feel like I've waffled on a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to explain kind of the flexibility and the beauty of being really hands-on with your customers.
Yeah, no, it's I'm while you were talking, I was actually thinking I need to channel some more of the way you've gone about things in terms of that, directly asking people about
Yes.
your proposition and things like that. And that also the point you made about co-creation really resonates. So with our events that we've run in Sheffield, and we've got one coming up at the end of November as well. But we're actually much. It's taken us a lot more time to get it sorted this time because we've had lots of other things going on. But when we first started it, we reached out to some people in Sheffield, and that was a co-created thing. So we were originally thinking of doing a kind of round table, maybe a dinner. And then we spoke to people like Charlotte Allen, who's actually going to be one of the panelists at our upcoming event. And she was like, oh, no, I don't think that's going to be the right thing to do, because people will want to, if it's a dinner, people will sat down, they'll be like in fixed positions and they won't be able to speak. You won't be able to move around. So, it'd be good to have a more of a kind of a sort of networking kind of mingling sort of bit of the event combined with like a talking sort of panel bit. And then we also spoke to Christina Sesma and Dan Mortimer, and others as well, but those are the ones that I initially just pop into my mind. Laura Appleby as well. So, and it was a really great thing that it really challenged our ideas about what we were going to do originally. And then we went, it was when we then created it, it was those people all attended. Actually, I think Laura, Christina and Dan were the first panelists. So it actually just, it was effectively the attendees and the participants that actually built the event, which I think also we've kind of taken that out with clients and suggested that clients go about the way they do their marketing and just more generally think about sort of bringing that co-creation aspect in, because it's so powerful. But I think also the way you use LinkedIn, I think is really, I think you seem to really get a huge amount of value out of the platform and use it in a really interesting way. So I think that's, obviously we'll be sharing clips from this on LinkedIn, but I think there's lots I think for people to kind of learn, I think, from how you're using LinkedIn, both in terms of your content, but also the way that you're like engaging with people through polls and then kind of following up with them.
And I would
and just
say,
really diving in.
it's definitely been an evolution. To start off with, I was just using the platform as a broadcasting tool and realized it can be so much more than that. And you for me personally, I got in my head quite a bit about it, building my personal brand. Oh, that feels just really icky. I used to absolutely be somebody that would be a secret lurker. So I would just scroll and occasionally comment, but never really put myself out there for fear of rejection. But you've just got to do it. You've got to embrace it. Sometimes the only person that gets in the way of us achieving what we want to achieve is ourselves and our mindset. And so I've really worked hard on my mindset and just trying to just go for it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? What is the worst that can happen? But what's the best thing that could happen by doing something? And often, just to put it in perspective, everyone has their own things that they're worried about. Nobody cares about little old me, like posting on LinkedIn. Just get over yourself, Liz. So I think posting and using it to start off with as a broadcasting tool definitely helped to build more confidence using it in that way and using it to help build my personal brand. And then I had a conversation, a curious coffee conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it might be a couple of months ago now. And they gave me some very direct feedback. And it was feedback that hurt a little bit, but I needed the feedback. And they said to me, right, you're using it as a broadcasting tool, but there are so many other things that you could use it for right now. Are you actually talking to your target audience? Are you having a two-way conversation with your target audience? And it made me just kind of rethink. So if people are commenting on your posts, like someone's taken the time and effort to comment and engage with your post. So give them like your time and effort and the energy they deserve by kind of nurturing that relationship. So sometimes I will follow up on a LinkedIn message. So to continue those conversations, not in a salesy way at all, just as I'm a human, you're a human. I love what you had to say there. That type of thing. So just very conversational. And I also think making the effort to engage more, making the effort to comment and engage more on what other brilliant people are doing, even people in your space. And sometimes we can have a bit of a scarcity mindset, like, oh gosh, there's no way I can comment on a peer's piece of work. Their target audience is the same as my target audience. I don't want them stealing my business or whatever. There is enough business for everybody. There is enough kind of love and generosity for everybody. So I think commenting on people and creators in my space that are doing wonderful things, learning from them too and what they're posting on LinkedIn has been invaluable. Nurturing those relationships, like I said, in the polls, if anyone's not using polls now, I would absolutely recommend using polls, because not only is it a way of gathering some insights that you can use, meaningful insight to either use from a content creation perspective, proposition development, all kinds of things. It also gives you an opportunity to go out and just have conversations and keep building and nurturing those relationships. So I would say that's really just really important. And also when people are commenting on your posts, or if you're looking at top creators in your space and the comments they're getting, again, there are opportunities for content creation. What kind of questions are people asking? Can you answer those questions? Or can you create content that helps to answer and satisfy some of those questions and conversations that are going on?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I would urge listeners, if you're not watching this on LinkedIn already, then go and check out Liz's LinkedIn, because it's a great both resource for for the topic of ADHD, neuro-inclusion, marketing, etc., but also just as a great kind of example of how to use LinkedIn and get the best out of it. A final kind of thing to round off the section. I watched this sort of like meme kind of video a while back, which was talking about like if you're a founder in sort of 2025 or in the current era, you kind of have to be a content creator. You have to be kind of out there whether you like it or not. And so it had this kind of like slightly kind of grumpy like founder who was like maybe like making some kind of like chocolate product or something, and she was like, well, because it's 2025, unfortunately I've got to be on camera to do this. So but it was like, it got loads of traction because, so I think that's like that there's part of that whether you kind of like it or not in 2025, because it's not something that I don't know, I enjoy parts of it, but it's not sort of, I don't love putting myself out there, but I guess it's like, at the end of the day, you've sort of got to, if you're working in a really small business, and people expect that, I think, in 2025, that you need to be visible. People need to kind of be able to get a sense of you. And I think when I see businesses that aren't doing that, I often feel as though it's like, if you did do that, you'd get a lot more success, particularly small businesses. Like just showing what are the people in the business actually like, what do they actually talk about, think about, what are they doing, and just, I guess, like removing the barriers between potential customers and partners and customers and so on, and then the business, and just kind of being out there, which I think is part of what you're doing a lot of, and we also try to do.
And I think as well, what's really helped me, again, with my mindset with posting, I'm not posting to go viral. I'm posting to be helpful. It's not about me. It's helping my target audience. So for me, as long as my posts are helpful in some way, and or people resonate with them, like, oh gosh, that person went through what they went through and they've been able to become unstuck and they've moved forward from it, maybe I can do the same. So as long as I'm being helpful, I'm not on LinkedIn to be an expert at LinkedIn. I'm not a personal branding expert. I'm using the platform hopefully to help create something that is helpful, that and that can promote my business too. So I think that has been a really helpful mindset shift for me, because when you see top creators and you see the hundreds of likes and the comments and the engagement, that can very quickly put barriers in your way to posting as well, because you just think, oh gosh, I've only had 2 or 3 likes or a bit of engagement, maybe I shouldn't do it. But wow, 2 or 3 likes, 2 or 3 people took the time to engage with what you've written. How incredible is that? And I think just framing it slightly different can help.
Yeah. And I often also see that posts that get less likes can actually get way more impressions, where I think also sometimes posts that are a little bit more, maybe less headline grabbing and more intriguing, and possibly even slightly more like polarizing, not in a kind of unreasonable way, but if you sort of post like maybe just a kind of feel good selfie or something, maybe you get lots of likes, but actually it's like it's not really driving something for your business, or like driving the conversation forward. Whereas actually, if I think I saw some posts where they've clearly, like, LinkedIn served it a lot, I think, because people have read it a lot, and it's maybe been something that people have been intrigued by and interested by, but maybe it's not got a kind of easy sort of, I'm going to like that as a kind of cohesive little, like, because I think if you think about social behavior on social media, it's often sort of, I think when people like or repost or something, but particularly like something, it's almost like if it's a really kind of simple idea that's kind of, or just a, maybe not even an idea, just a kind of like, this good thing happened. Whereas something that's more thought-provoking, I think maybe can get lower reactions, but more actual engagement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And I've been in situations where I'm working on a proposal at the moment for a large corporate who they've done neuro awareness, and now they're wanting to help support managers to actually activate and look at action that can take place in the workplace. And they booked a discovery call with me through LinkedIn. And when I had a look at my last couple of posts, they haven't engaged with any of my posts. So we've been connected. They haven't engaged with any of my content at all, yet they still reached out to me for an intro call. So I would say, exactly to your point, like, don't sweat the engagement. Often people that are most in need of your service or your target audience, they sometimes lurk too, just like I was a lurker. And some people feel vulnerable engaging with content as well online.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, to echo that experience, I've had quite a few times where people have said, potential customers or potential clients have said, oh, just like that post you did like about this, and it was from like
Mm,
ages ago, and don't remember them like engaging with it, but
yeah.
they are seeing it. And so, and to your point, I mean, I don't go around like, I'm on LinkedIn like all the time basically, because it's just the sort of, it's my social platform of choice.
Yes.
um but I don't like that much. I actually have to force myself to remember. I very rarely comment, but I try to kind of be like, no, I did find value from that, I should drop a like there. But
Mm,
so yeah, I'm very much in that kind of, I read way more than I like or comment or
yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so just moving into the next sort of main topic area, one of the big things that is interesting about your career journey and sort of, I guess, where you are now is how marketing and neurodivergence intersect. And it's something
Mm,
that you mentioned in terms of the fact that there's lots of neurodivergent people in marketing. It sort of attracts that kind of personality, which really resonates. But I thought also it'd be good to maybe start right at the top a bit and talk about, from your point of view, what is neuro-inclusion?
yeah. So neurodivergence itself, because it can be quite confusing for people that aren't neurodivergent to navigate some of the terms or kind of get a feel for it. But neurodivergence is a term akin to culture, gender. So it's an umbrella term used to describe people that think differently to the dominant neurotypical brain. And neurodivergence includes conditions like ADHD, autism, dyspraxia, dyslexia, quite a few different conditions. And research indicates, or we now know, that if you have ADHD, as an example, you're far more likely to have a co occurring condition like autism and dyslexia too. So the way in which we all present is very different because we're all different to start off with. We all have unique personalities. So then when you think of how our personality intersects with ADHD, and if you have a co-occurring condition, how that kind of intersects, then you've got gender, you've got culture, you've got your background, you've got your experience. It all plays a part into who we are and shaping how we present. So I just first of all wanted to explain that if you've met one person with ADHD, you literally have met one person with ADHD because our traits and preferences are very, very different. So I would always encourage people to have open, curious conversations and be led by the person that you're having the conversation with and not to make any assumptions. But you're right, coming back to what you were saying about marketing, because a lot of our strengths, so we do have some common strengths within the ADHD community, they lend themselves beautifully to marketing and creative industries. So we're very creative. We often connect the dots in different ways because we think in a neurodivergent way. We think differently. So we connect the dots very differently. We can connect dots quite rapidly as well. So we think very fast. We've got quite a fast processing brain. Sometimes that operates against us, but sometimes not. So that can be one of our strengths, but it can also be one of our challenges. We're also quite curious. We love to find things out. We can be quite bold and we can risk take, which again, depending on the type of sector that you work within, sometimes can be a good thing, sometimes maybe not so good. But there are a lot of people, business owners and founders, that are neurodivergent because of some of these strengths. Exactly like you were saying before about the restrictions that we can sometimes feel within the corporate space as well. And the degree of flexibility that we're looking for. So I'm trying to think, so many kind of brilliant strengths that we've got. We're also, as a community, very emotionally intelligent and quite in tune. So we make great leaders. So some brilliant strengths, like I said, that anchor really nicely to marketing and creative. Did I answer your question then, or did I?
Yeah, I think so, because that's kind of
Like,
I
yeah.
guess I guess that was kind of the point about kind of why marketing attracts the neurodivergent people, which I think, I guess, how can businesses be neuro-inclusive
Oh,
for
neuro-inclusive,
these?
of course. Sorry, I
Yeah,
finished
like how can,
that.
yeah, no, but I think it's probably almost makes sense to define and sort of set the scene, and then sort of talk about how we can support
Yeah.
those people.
So neuro-inclusion starts with the person, and it goes back to being curious. It doesn't have to be a big thing, and you don't have to be an expert in neurodivergence to be an ally and to support people in the right way. As I've said, if you know one person with ADHD, you know one person with ADHD. So one size does not fit all in our community. Some of us are experience sensory overwhelm. So going into an open plan space where there's lots of noise, the lighting's a bit crazy, you're quite crowded, that doesn't operate, or it doesn't allow some people to thrive. Whereas some people are quite comfortable in that setting. So it really is and has to be person specific when you talk about neuro-inclusion. But understanding when we talk broadly about neuro-inclusion, what we're talking about there is removing some of the barriers that exist for people to perform well at work. Everyone wants to perform well at work, don't they? Everyone wants to be in a position in an environment where they're thriving. And often it's the environments and the systems and the processes that we have in the workplace that inhibit that or don't allow us to reach our full potential. So if you're a manager and you have a neurodivergent colleague that you're managing, have open, curious conversations when you're having your one-to-one chats. Don't just make it about the task and the activities. Yes, that's important, but look at outcomes and output and talk about how you can help that person to work at their best. Does that mean, as an example, that traveling in peak rush hour times, is that becoming quite overwhelming for them? So by the time they come into the office, if they're going into the office, are they quite drained of energy? So they're starting quite low energy wise and finding it difficult then to perform at work. There are some really small adjustments that you can make, and it doesn't have to cost anything at all. Like talking about communications in marketing, sometimes we can have ambiguous briefs, particularly from CEOs or from other senior leaders. We might have a very, I don't know, I'm going to make something up. I'll make something up based on an experience I had years and years and years ago, where someone, a very senior person, said to me, I'm not sure if I like our brand anymore. I met my daughter's new kitten and they had Caribbean blue eyes. I would love for our brand to reflect that beautiful colour. We can be pulled into all kinds of weird and wonderful conversations, can't we, as marketers? And a lot of it is opinion based. Like, take that as an example. That was a person's opinion and a preference and didn't reflect our brand values or anything at all. But sometimes when you're given ambiguous feedback or an ambiguous brief, it can be really hard to navigate that too. So again, if you're working with neurodivergent colleagues, try and be as explicit and clear as you possibly can using plain English, just so we can make sure that there's a shared common understanding.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I've noticed working with, just a small thing to that point about rush hour traffic and just making small adjustments. One of our clients, I think, has recently started just a small thing, letting people choose when they start, whether they start at 8 or start at 9.
Yeah.
And then obviously if they start at 8, because I go and visit this client quite regularly, so I know that the traffic trying to get into their office and out of their office in rush hour is really, really bad. But it can be much improved if you kind of leave either a bit after or before the kind of the rush hour. So just letting people, come in an hour early, finish an hour early if they want to, I think can be really helpful in terms of and just those little things that, as you say, don't cost anything. I mean, that's not so much a neurodivergent or neuro-inclusive thing. It's just a kind of sensible thing to do, I guess.
Is.
But I
Yeah.
think but there's also, I think, probably a lot of the neuro-inclusive stuff is on along similar kinds of lines. And I guess
Absolutely. Sorry, I was just going to
no, go
add
on.
there's an analogy which I think is really helpful when we talk about neuro-inclusion. If you have a lift at work, you're not treating anybody differently by having that lift in place. What you're doing is you're providing access for everybody. And it's the same when we talk about neuro-inclusion. It's not about special treatment. It's about removing barriers that might exist for people to perform at their best. And surely, as an organisation, you want to be in a position where people are performing at their best, where they're well, they feel great about their contribution, and they're able to thrive. Because when people thrive at work, guess what? Organisations also thrive. It's win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, I think people often think about and talk about work like, oh, people don't really care about their companies or their jobs. My experience has been that if you're working when you're putting, say 35 hours or 37 and a half hours of your week, your waking week into working for a company, ordinarily most people are going to feel some level of buy-in to that, because they're not going to want to be doing that for any length of time if they
Yeah.
don't kind of feel aligned. So I think that probably people there can, I think, maybe be a tendency to underestimate how bought in people are into their jobs, and how probably most people care quite a lot about how they do it work, as you say. And they just, and companies, it's important to sort of unlock and let that natural inclination to sort of do well and thrive happen. So kind of remove the barriers.
Absolutely. We spend a lot of our waking hours working. Don't
Yeah.
we? A lot of our waking hours working. Wouldn't it be nice if our experience was, I was going to say joyful, that might be on the extreme, but you want to have fun at work as well, don't you? You want to have fun, you want to feel fulfilled, you want to be able to do your best work.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I've found, I think we've discussed this, but I feel like I am probably neurodivergent to some extent. I don't necessarily think around ADHD, but I think one of the things that I found really difficult was I'm kind of somebody where I'm either kind of quite all in or all out. So I think when I was an employee, I would sort of be really, really sort of dedicated and into it. But then if something happened where I felt like something sort of substantial was not right in the situation, it could really flip me. And when it flipped, in terms of like, I would be totally kind of desperate to leave immediately. And I would
Yeah.
so I'd have that kind of quite binary, like black and whiteness about how I saw things. And I think, and I guess I can see how a lot of other people could potentially have that to one extent or another. And another thing, just on this point, is I guess a couple of the follow-ons on this is how can you best manage a team of neurodivergent people, and also how can you kind of support yourself as a neurodivergent person in the kind of corporate or business world.
Yeah. Let's explore, first of all, if you're a neurodivergent person, how you can support yourself at work. Energy is the biggest factor. I talk about energy a lot because especially if you are ADHD or you have autism, energy is such an important dynamic and factor for us. Energy can impact our cognitive load and our ability to process information. It can impact how we regulate and our ability to regulate our emotions. So, for example, if our energy is a low level, 1 out of 10, we're most likely, and I say most likely because everybody is different, but we're most likely to feel personally rejected when we receive constructive feedback. I've been in a situation before where my energy levels were low, therefore not my most resilient self, and received constructive feedback, and it was debilitating for me. And that sounds really extreme, but when you are neurodivergent and you have rejection sensitivity, which is a core part of ADHD, we can feel feedback very personally, very intensely. And I was dysregulated for about 48 hours after receiving that. I found it very difficult to focus and concentrate on my work. So energy levels, I just gave one example there just to help bring it to life. Energy levels are super, super important. So I would always do, first thing in the morning, maybe after a coffee or a drink, a check-in with your energy. What's your energy like on a scale of 1 to 10? If it's low, what can you do to boost your energy? and show up in the way that you want to show up at work that day. So if, for example, you've got a really important meeting and you want to bring energy to that conversation, how can you boost and recharge your battery so you're ready for that meeting? And that looks different to everybody. So understanding what gives you energy and what depletes your energy is super important. For me personally, active rest is really important to help charge my battery. And again, active rest looks different to lots of people. My version of active rest is a step class because I'm having to concentrate on the instructions, I'm moving, and it's quite fast paced. So my brain is absolutely silent. There's no noise at all there because I'm having to really focus. Other people experience active rest when they're crocheting or knitting because they're fully immersed in something and they're getting enjoyment from it and they're not thinking about other things. So I would say make sure you're mapping your energy, make sure you're blocking out time throughout your week to recharge your energy, because if you leave it to the point where you're completely depleted, you're going to enter burnout territory, and nobody wants to be in burnout territory. So I would say that to start off with. I would also say self-compassion. We can be really hard on ourselves as a community, really hard on ourselves. There's a lot of shame. We ruminate a lot on conversations. I should have said this or I should have said that. You cannot change what's happened in the past, and you can't know what's going to happen in the future. So really try and ground yourself as much as possible in your day to day. And you can do that by lots of different things, activities. Movement helps me, but movement might not help everybody else. So I would say having some self-compassion. We all make mistakes. We all say things that we don't wish we hadn't said. It's life. So try not to be so hard on yourself. And also, we're working with barriers and challenges that might not exist for other people. So just show yourself a little bit of kindness and invest time looking after yourself too. Very basic stuff, but make sure you're hydrating yourself, that you're eating protein, that you're getting fresh air, general kind of well-being stuff, which sounds really simple. But for neurodivergent people, we can sometimes forget the basics, particularly if we're hyper-focused or we're stressed. We'll forget to drink or forget to eat. So just making sure you're doing things like that. If you're managing a neurodiverse team, which if you have a big team, you will be managing a neurodiverse team, whether you realize it or not, lots of neurodivergent thinking. Treat people as individuals. It's really basic again. So human to human. So what makes one person tick will look very different to what makes another person tick. Barriers to performance for one person will look very different to somebody else. So really invest in the relationships that you have with your team. If you're not investing in those relationships and you're not having regular one-to-one conversations that aren't just about delivering tasks and those horrible transactional conversations that we often have, if you're not having those conversations, you're not creating a safe space or rapport with your colleagues to share information with you. So it starts before you can even get to the point of kind of working out how to support someone's needs. If you're not creating the environment where someone's going to say to you, hey, I've just been diagnosed as ADHD, I'd love to explore some support needs. If you haven't got that rapport and you haven't created that safety, you're never going to get to that point.
Yeah, it resonates a lot. I think it's quite a sort of common thing that people will often be way more compassionate to others than they are to themselves.
Yeah.
So they would never kind of speak to others the way they speak to themselves and things like that.
It's so true. Yeah. We have this inner critic often dialed up, but let's counterbalance that. What would our inner coach say? It doesn't have to be about our inner critic. We are not our thoughts. So just that. And also I came across a really great analogy recently that I've been using in coaching. If you're cooking something on a stove and you touch the hot stove, you do not keep your hand on that, do you? Because you touch it and you're like, shit, that's hot. Ouch. Why on earth would you keep your hand on there? And that's what we do when we're ruminating. Oh, I made a mistake. Okay, so in the example of the hand on the hot stove, you would just be registering, I made a mistake, right? What can I do to move on? But what we do is we made a mistake. I'm going to keep my hand on that hot stove. Oh no, I messed up. I made a mistake. And before you know it, we spent an hour in this kind of doom rumination. It's serving no purpose at all. No purpose.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think
I swore there. I hope that's okay.
no, 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 it's totally fine. Yeah, I also I think something recently I've been it's actually an idea that I've been aware of for ages, but just kind of letting go of things that aren't helpful to you. So I guess like a thought or just like a behavior, but
Yeah.
I guess particularly I think with thinking, just like thinking like, is this serving like me? You know, to sort of be
Yes.
thinking about this or worrying about this issue or whatever it might be, and just allowing yourself to kind of take the leap of faith of letting go of a kind of when you're tempted to ruminate on something.
Yeah.
There's a kind of like it's almost that's quite exhilarating and but also quite nerve-wracking in a really weird way. I think if you're a little bit kind of obsessive
Mhm.
compulsive, to kind of to sort of let go and say I'm going to stop thinking about this. It can feel like, because I guess when you're thinking about things and ruminating on things, I guess the underlying kind of motivation, which is kind of erroneous, but it's what you're trying to do, is you're thinking that by thinking about it lots, you're going to somehow make it safer, reduce the risk of it, or somehow kind of solve it by thinking, which
Yeah,
isn't which
I
isn't
think
possible.
well, absolutely. I think there's a bit of that, but I think there's also an element of self sabotage. So our brain kind of just not operating in a healthy way for us when it comes to
Mm.
that. We do sometimes have a bit of a negative thinking bias, and so that rumination plays into that, and that self sabotage is kicking in. And for those of you that are listening and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get from a place where I am now, which is maybe you're ruminating a lot, to not ruminating? It doesn't happen overnight. It is about learning techniques and practice, practice, practice. Like any skills, the more you practice and the more you learn and develop, it's like building a muscle. You don't build a muscle overnight, do you? You have to put in the regular reps. Like the more you do something, the easier it becomes. So if anyone's having rumination spirals right now, the first thing to do is just spot that you're having a rumination spiral. Like you don't need to do anything else. Just notice, I've left my hand on the stove for far too long there. That's all you need to do. And that self awareness builds over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and the power of just being aware of what's happening, I think, is very
Yeah,
underrated. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, yeah, it's been really, really brilliant to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on. And
Thank you for
apologies, it's
having
been
me.
slightly delayed in terms of getting this recording sorted. I have found uh, the energy really refreshing and inspiring in terms of the way that you. Um, it feels like you're a very free, your energy feels very free to me. I guess like just the way that you're kind of like in terms of the way you're going about your business, the way that you're the original decision to do what you're doing, and so it's a really kind of inspiring kind of story, and I thought it was one of the many reasons why I thought it would be great for you to come on, and it's been a great conversation. So thank you.
Thank you very much for
And
having me.
yeah, so if people want to keep in touch with you, learn more about the Goodspace, what's the best way for people to do
Yes.
that?
So LinkedIn at the moment is my primary social channel. So you can find me just Liz Goodbrand, or
Yep,
you can check my website out. So it's thegoodspace.uk.
brilliant. Okay, well, great. Thank you. And yeah, we'll speak soon, I'm sure.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so